Now, Sascha, I want to talk to you about something that you have done a bit of work on for FOMA magazine, and that is the subject of transmaxxing. Can you tell us, just to start this discussion, what is transmaxxing?
So Transmaxxing is it's a few things. It's a Discord group, but that to me isn't the most important part. There's a manifesto which is incredibly lengthy, 60 plus pages.
Oh wow!
What I find interesting about it, and I've interviewed these people, is not that there is a group of people on the internet called transmaxers. It's that there are people who are transitioning who have these ideas, and there are individuals expressing them on the internet. They do exist, and they're people who are transitioning for functional reasons. And as we said earlier, with the kind of people who are treating it like Lego, there is a lot of crossover. What I found with the transmaxers, who are very open and honest about what they're doing and why they're doing it, one of them said that they transitioned to get access to female STEM field initiatives, or at least that was one of the reasons. But my thing is that it kind of, these people existing and being honest prove that there are people who think like that. And if there are people who think like that, it means there's more people who think like that who aren't labeling themselves transmaxers. It means that these factors are coming into people's heads. In a way, I was impressed by the honesty displayed by the transmaxers in just saying, this is what we're doing. But then it calls the whole thing into question a little bit with, again, is this a body modification? What is this? Why are people doing this? Is this something, I mean, some of the transmaxers spoke about how they wanted to, one of them originally started with, wanting to self-castrate because they wanted to remove their sexuality entirely. That was what because it annoyed them, because they were becoming an incel and they were scared of incels because of, I guess, the society. So we go back to how society is vilifying young men. And, this is someone who was like 18, 19, thinking this stuff, just starting out their life in a way. It's still in school. And they wanted to destroy their sexuality entirely, so they started with that. They started with all herbal treatments and eventually, and all these sort of mad things. And then eventually they realized that they could just say they were trans. And it also came with all of the perks. This is the same person who wants to get in the STEM fields. So it also came with all of those perks. So it was useful. It was utilitarian in a way.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. I mean, I just before we go to a break, I have to tell you, I actually talked to a lot of women's rights activists about the issue of men who transition to be women for reasons other than gender dysphoria. I mean, autogynephilia is one of them. And all these women's rights activists have said that effectively the trans movement is the best, quote-unquote, men's rights movement that's ever existed. So transmaxers basically then, are they just sort of saying the quiet part out loud? That actually, yes, women do benefit probably more than men in society nowadays, and we want access to those benefits?
100%. I think that it's,
Wow.
I think for a lot of them, it's, I'm not saying blanketly all trans, obviously.
No,
but I'm saying a lot of people, yes. I think this new wave of people is 100% doing that. And I think it's patently obvious for anyone looking, or anyone who has eyes, to see. We see it in competitive spaces. I mean, I find it very dubious to believe that someone wants to transition inside after already being in sports for a very long time just because they want to transition and then go on to win all the it seems like there might be another motive there, and I think it's kind of absurd for people to act like there isn't. I do think as well, though, it's becoming more and more obvious that this is the case. I also think it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the hierarchy of care in society. So there's this kind of hierarchy that we naturally have, where we go like men, women, children, and trans people are coming in and kind of breaking up that hierarchy in a lot of ways, because female spaces like bathrooms, on its own, that's a very benign setting. It's just a bathroom, but actually you don't know what people are going in there with. Some people may have sexual assault. Some people may have all of these things. And unfortunately, if you're walking in there and for whatever reason, as a trans person, you could trigger someone's, PTSD, and then suddenly they're having an argument with you. And what's happened there is actually the most vulnerable person in society, or one of the most vulnerable persons in society, has had their space invaded by someone who on the hierarchy of care is not at the same level as them.
Exactly. I think that's a really excellent way of putting it. And certainly, look, at least transmaxers are being honest. I admire them for that.